Hello everybody, this is Manu S and welcome to another Eternal News episode. Today we're going to talk about a whole lot of spoilers. They have been racking up over the last 2 days and I didn't really get the chance to review them yet, so strap in for a whole bunch of them now in a row. Alright, so let's dive right in. First we have Vicious Highwayman. First of all, the card looks kind of nice. It's double fire, double shadow, 4/2 with charge and warcry. On summon, it deals 1 damage to an enemy, and when an enemy unit dies, Vicious Highwayman gets lifesteal and quick draw this turn. So the card all in all looks pretty nice. Like if you have something to kill the turn it comes down, it's a 4/2 lifesteal quick draw warcry, which is quite nice. I think the main problem is a bit that it's kind of niche because it competes with cards like Bandit Queen and it can hardly beat a Bandit Queen in most aggro decks. And in a style of aggro deck where Bandit Queen is not that good, a lot of the time Impending Doom looks better and is easier to play due to only being double shadow. So the card kind of goes into a curve slot that is already pretty full of good cards for the types of decks it goes in. But we'll see, because power level wise the card is definitely pretty sweet and it's a little different from things we have. It's like kind of potentially also interesting in a mid-rangey deck, as long as the mid-range deck is aggressive enough, for example. But yeah, there's a lot it competes with, so not sure how it's gonna fit in, but power level wise it's a good card. Next we have Mysterio Mob. Sorry, I couldn't find a bigger, higher resolution picture than this. So this is another ramp relic. Mysterio Mob gives +1 maximum power for each explorer you control, and gives all your sentinels endurance and overwhelm. So cards like Heart of the Vault, for example, are sentinels too. So this might be a puzzle piece that works towards that kind of Praxis ramp deck that I talked about, that tops off at the new Fire 8 drop, the I think Titan. The question will basically be, is there enough good explorers to play to support Mysterio Mob? Because Amber Acolyte is an obvious one, although it competes with Mysterio Mob in the curve slot, so it's a bit awkward to go Orb into Acolyte and not having any acceleration on turn 4, and also spending your turn 4 playing Amber Acolyte instead of something properly powerful. And we kind of lack enough good 1 and 2 drop explorers so far to set this up nicely. Because what do you want with a card like Evelina in a Praxis deck, especially a Praxis ramp deck, because she's just gonna be a 2/2 for 2. So nothing too flashy here. But the card definitely looks interesting, and I'll imagine we might see more explorers to support this in the new set, and this actually could also be a deck that could be interested in some number of Ask for Directions, because, you know, a ramp deck often only has a limited amount of high impact cards and a bunch of ramp and other power sources that are really bad draws later on, and scouting them away to draw into the strong cards or find warp cards can be really powerful, and the deck also, as a ramp deck, is poised to have sufficient power to make good use of Ask for Directions. So this could actually become more relevant and interesting than I initially thought. Next we have a 4 power 3/3 Oni Fuego Infernal, probably Hellfire Oni is the presumed translation, and it has an ultimate. The ultimate says if you equip Hellfire Oni with a weapon, put another copy of that weapon on it. Best option that usually comes to mind for this, of course, is Shogun's Scepter. It would basically turn the Oni into a 7/5. Sorry about that. into a 7/5 and give you two Oni Ronins to boot. So that's pretty nice, and also gives Hellfire Oni a Warcry too. So a lot of good value there. I mean, a 4-cost 3/3 is a bit fragile and not that impressive. Katana is also a decent option, turns it into a 7/3 and draws you 2 cards. But yeah, not sure if the card is going to be good enough to make it into constructed. I guess an upside is that it is a pistolero, aka a gunslinger, so this might fit into the potential Rakano gunslinger ally deck that I talked about a while ago, that might be on the horizon. And there we have a couple of more nice weapons, because putting a plate on this the turn after turns it into a 10/3 overwhelm endurance, which is super powerful, and even a Hammer of Might looks mighty good on this as like a 9/9 with like Warcry 6 for that turn. So the card is actually pretty nice, although it competes with Hammer of Might in a way as a 4-drop and some other 4-drops like Navani, so we'll have to see. But it is a card that at least might be interesting and good enough for constructed. So next we have another legendary, a spell this time, costs triple primal and 7, Jotun Burst Song. Transform one of your Yeti into a 6/6 Jotun, one of those giants, and then draw 2 different Yeti of your choice from your deck. I guess that means you have to pick 2 different Yetis. You can't pick 2 of the same, like 2 Wumps, for example. The thing is that I find a bit weird is most of the good Yeti cards are quite aggressive. Wump is fairly aggressive. No Crust Yeti and Champion of Fury are very aggressive. Most of the other 2-drop options are very aggressive, not very mid-rangey. And then there's cards like Scouting Party and Jotun Birthsong, which are quite the opposite and are like clunky, slow, value-oriented mid-range cards. So there's a bit of a weird tension between the 2 halves of what Yetis can do. So we'll have to see if Jotun Birthsong will be good enough, especially because you need to be deep on Yetis for it to be good enough, since otherwise you won't have 2 good Yetis to draw with the Birthsong second half. But yeah, we'll see. It's at least a fairly strong effect that could be interesting, like curving a Scouting Party into this is definitely not unappealing, because turns one of your Scouting Party Yetis either pre or even better post-combat after it drew a card into a 6/6 and then draws you 2 more Yetis to, for example, drawing a Wump and something else, and then the remaining Scouting Parties, Yeti Spies, better next turn, and so on. Alright, next we have Shush. That's kind of an interesting one. Fast spell, basically a silence effect, but one that solves all the problems of the card in a row. But still have to keep in mind it basically doesn't trade for an opposing card. Still only just 3-cost card that silences a unit, even though it silences all copies in their hand, deck, and void. So this is a decent answer against all Dawnwalkers of your opponent, for example, or if they have strong value units like, say, Mystic Ascendant, Seraph, Martial Ironthorn, Heart of the Vault, all those things. Especially with Heart of the Vault, because it even denies them the warp, making the card even worse. But yeah, it's still fairly costly for the effect at 3, and the fact that you basically trade a card for no card is also nothing to sneeze at, but might be an interesting sideboard card for certain matchups in tournament play, but I don't see this making it in the main deck of ladder decks most likely. Next we have Ashara, Ruthless Assassin. She's still deadly, 3/3 deadly here. She is a gunslinger, so also potential for like going into Stone Scar for Gunslinger allies, depending on how many other good Gunslingers we're gonna have in the end. When she attacks with exactly one other unit, she gets +4 attack and quick draw this turn. At the end of the turn, kill the unit that she attacked with. So what you want to be doing, for example, is obviously attack with, say, a grenade in. Then you have a 7/3 deadly quick draw that the opponent can basically not block, and all they can do is just like block the grenade in, and that's like not gonna matter because Ashara is gonna kill the grenade in at the end of turn anyway. So this is kind of an interesting and weird design, but yeah, the card is fairly strong. I mean, she's still a bit fragile in the sense that she has 3 health, so she dies to the usual stuff, Torch, Sword of Icaria and all that stuff. But in combat, she's a beast. So keep an eye on her. We'll see how good she's gonna turn out in the end. Next we have Zipperwing Smith. This is a pretty sweet new Valkyrie. Not that great for like a lot of the Valkyrie synergies we've seen so far. Like Valkyrie ally, like he's decent with the Valkyrie ally weapon, but like with some other Valkyrie ally stuff, not sure how good he's gonna fit. Like I don't see him in most decks alongside Crown Watch Quartermaster, for example. But this might be a really nice piece for Armory, and might also make it more appealing to go back to a more traditional Armory with a bit less units and no Tavrod, because this is a potentially really sweet 3-drop. It's a 1/4 flying, so it blocks really well, stalls and protects your weapons, and also enhances your weapons. All your weapons gonna have +1 armor when you play them, so it's kind of a bit of a similar effect as Artisan, except for the weapons that you've already drawn, and instead you don't get the attack buff. And it obviously also works really well together with Artisan, making your weapons generally much more impactful, and even makes it so that, say, your Throne Wardens gain you 5 armor instead of 4 and so on. And that effect obviously amplifies with stuff like Smuggler's Stash. So that card is pretty sweet and pretty interesting, and might make a splash in Armory. It's a pretty nice role player. It's not super powerful, but it does a lot of nice things fairly well that decks like Armory care about. I quite like the card and the design, and we'll see how good it turns out in the end. Next we have a pretty sweet new card, Strategize. Finally a decent new card draw card. So you get to draw 2 cards and then put 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck, which is about the same as discarding in terms of card selection, and worse than discarding in terms of like void manipulation, like Dawnwalker or Grasping at Shadow Reanimation, shenanigans and stuff like that, or Privilege of Rank, and so on and so forth, which is I assume some of the reasons why the card puts 1 on the bottom of your deck and not in your void, because it might be a bit too powerful with cards like Privilege of the ranks, or Dawnwalker, for example, in the right decks. But yeah, drawing 2 and getting to put away like early on a late drop that you don't want in your hand in a matchup where you need to be faster, or just excess power or dead removal or something like that, is really, really nice. This is a very sweet draw smoother deck manipulation, because putting a bad card on bottom while drawing 2 cards is often almost as good as drawing 2 cards, and that for 2 power. It's a spell, not a fast spell, so it is a bit inflexible, but given that it only costs 2 and only a single primal, makes it still quite flexible and good. So really like the card. Well balanced and nice utility tool for primal based decks that care about effects like this. And last but not least, we have Challenge by Law. This is somewhat interesting because it's one of the few other removal spells in Justice so far. Justice has already shown that it can kill units, but only in a very limited fashion, and this is an basically unconditional removal. It costs 6, which is a lot, but it also happens to, in addition, silence all enemy units. To be fair, I think for 6, just the fact that it silences all other units in addition does not really make up for it, given the fact that we have Harsh Rule at 5 that just simply kills all of them, and the types of decks that care about this are usually also similar or the same decks that care about Harsh Rule. So not sure how well this is going to turn out. It seems awfully clunky to me, and it could have easily cost 5, I think, to at least compete better with Harsh Rule, having like the upside of not interfering with your own board, but the downside of being worse than killing all of their dudes. But yeah, it is what it is, but I don't think it's going to be that good. It's just a bit too expensive and weak for what it does. But we will see if I'm wrong on that or not. Alright, that's it again for today's spoiler review. We have a whole lot of cards by now already for the new set, and they keep on coming, so I really hope we're going to see the set in the next like 1.5 weeks. That would be pretty amazing. Alright, thanks for watching everyone. If you enjoyed this review, please don't forget to like down below and turn on the notification after you subscribed to not miss out on any future videos. And that's it again for me from this Eternal News episode. I'm out. See you next time.